Well, because they have not been given a priority. All of the decisions, all of the efforts on the part of Palestine as a state, on the part of the Palestinian Authority, has been in the context of the Oslo framework, and the Oslo framework does not even consider refugees. As you know, the refugees in the Oslo agreements have all been put off as the subject of final status negotiations. The stateless refugees in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Egypt, in Jordan, everywhere, are in dire need of having someone speak for them. And the proposal basically says that if we initiate a process of citizenship where Palestine, the state of Palestine here, I'm not talking about the Palestinian Authority, gives citizenship and begins to speak on their behalf, provide state protection to them as states provide protection in the broad meaning of the word to any of its citizens, through entering into bilateral negotiations with host countries to define the duties and obligations. It is important now because the refugees, until now, have never been important. Well, what is required, probably even before the actual process of conferring citizenship, is to enter into bilateral negotiations with each of the host states, and probably with other states all around the world as well. These negotiations should define the rights and duties and obligations of the Palestinian citizens who become citizens, who remain refugees in their country until such time as they can exercise the right to return. It could help them by, for example, taking away some of the problematic issues in countries like Lebanon, for example, where they are excluded from dozens of jobs simply because they are not nationals of any state. They're excluded from all of the syndicated professions because their state cannot, offer a reciprocal arrangement for Lebanese professionals who want to work in that state. It could, define issues like Social Security, for example, enter into an agreement whereby a joint Social Security fund for the Palestinian refugees can be put together for them. There is a host of possibilities of what Palestine can negotiate if it can successfully negotiate regarding the status of its citizens in those countries. Well, there are a number of possible pitfalls, many of them political. Some of them are, essentially psychological almost, For example, the first thought that comes to mind is, can Palestine exercise sovereignty over its citizens when it cannot exercise sovereignty over its land yet? It's a state under occupation. I make the argument that it can. I mean, it's not. It's already behaving as a state, exercising sovereign prerogative in things like signing international treaties, like human rights treaties, like the Rome Statute of the International Court, being recognized by 135 countries around the world, etc. So why not take the next step and begin to claim your citizens in a legal way? There are pitfalls that are, for example, retaliatory measures that can be taken by Israel and the US. But in the end, Israel and the US will always take retaliatory measures every time Palestine tries to move outside of the Oslo framework. And I think it's time that we can create facts ourselves to create the politics. Politics is not just about talking about what's going on. It's about trying to create change through measures that you can take. Questions have been raised or can be raised as to whether providing citizenship for Palestinian refugees would affect negatively or otherwise the right to return. I contend that it actually strengthens the right to return because it reestablishes legally what is already a strong historical link to their country of origin, to their home country. This is very different from the refugee law, which generally says that if you acquire the nationality of another country, then you cease to be a refugee. This is not the case for Palestinians. You don't lose your refugee status because you become a citizen. And in fact, this strengthens it because you re-establish legally now your connection to Palestine, not only historically. And the only question then becomes whether it's return to only the West Bank and Gaza as the future Palestinian state, or return to all of Palestine and the original lands and homes kind of thing. And I think this is a very, very difficult one. And, in that sense, it doesn't change anything, because the claim to the right to original lands and homes is an individual claim. It is not, cannot be negotiated by a state, whether it's a state for its citizens or a political entity speaking on behalf of the refugees. The state of Palestine, or the Palestinian Authority, if you will, cannot negotiate away the right of return to original lands and homes. It remains up to me as an individual Palestinian refugee to decide what I can accept, what I cannot accept, and what I demand. It will not necessarily stop my claim to the right to return. Secondly, on the question of the authority and the state, it's very important to make that distinction. The Palestinian Authority is not the Palestinian state. The Palestinian Authority is only a construct of Oslo, whereas the Palestinian state is a state that has been declared by the Palestine Liberation Organization, that went and got recognition in the international arena. 135 countries already recognize the state, and it is not to be conflated with the Palestinian Authority, which has jurisdiction only in parts of the West Bank and Gaza, and not in East Jerusalem, not in Arab Jerusalem. The other thing is that the Palestinian state, the government of Palestine, if you will, is the Palestine National Council. And the conflation of the Palestinian Authority with the Palestine National Council and the executive committee of the PLO is, I think, a mistake. And even though they might be able to do it, and they've taken the decision to do it, and they do it, so Mahmoud Abbas is president of Palestine, as they say, but in effect, he needs to know which hat he's wearing when he's speaking on behalf of Palestine or on behalf of the Palestinian Authority. We need to separate the two. These are not the same entities.